Morning grinders. Hey, I did that. That was a long one. I think that's the longest one I've ever done with the good morning grinders. Hey, it's the DFS pregame show. I'm Jordan Cooper, aka Blender Ed, aka Blender HD, aka hopefully above you in the GPPs today. Maybe not yesterday. Yesterday in MLB, I didn't play. There was a big soccer EPL last game of the season. All the teams play at once. The big king of the pitch contest. I came in third place for $10,000. So screw it. So I wasn't able to play. I probably wouldn't have played Nelson Cruz anyway. So it's a good thing I didn't play. It seemed like, I'm looking at results DB from yesterday. It seemed like, okay, the chalk pitchers did well, but none of the chalk hitters did well. So it was one of those days where you may have gotten one right and not the others. But this is my process. This is what the DFS pregame show is all about. It's about looking back at the previous slate, studying successful top DFS players, as well as a preview of the day's slate with kind of a first look, going through projections, going through some stats that seem to stick out. And this is my process. So I bring like exactly what I would do at 11 in the morning Eastern time for myself, so we could walk through it together. So if you're in the YouTube chat, as always, I know I don't have any coffee. I don't drink coffee anymore because my digestive system, whatever. I haven't drank coffee since February, but now I drink like water and stuff. I'm a little bit more healthy. So in order to keep my water cold, you got to hit the thumbs up button because that's the way this. I don't want lukewarm water, right? Because I'm going to be on for 45 minutes, an hour or something, and this may get warm. So you got to hit the thumbs up button for me, so I can keep my water cold, and keep the show running. Hey, we already lost 2 baseball games today, right? That's what I get. I think it was my fault. On Friday, I stacked the Marlins. I did. And they didn't do horribly, right, against the Phillies. I stacked them, and then they all got sick. So maybe it's my fault. Maybe I did it. If I can't stack the Marlins every day, I don't even know if there's a point to playing MLB DFS anymore, right? If I can't stack the Marlins, the Tigers, the Pirates, let the crappy teams, I want them in, right? I'd rather the Red Sox get COVID or the Yankees, the expensive teams, the Astros. Why not? Because I don't have to worry about them because I normally don't play them anyway. But yesterday, looking through, this is what I typically do. I go to Results DB, which is on RotoGrinders. Right, this is a free show, so I'm going to show off some premium stuff that you should sign up for. RotoGrinders.com/premium for $39.99 a month. You get all the core 4 sports: MLB, NFL, NBA coming back this week, and PGA, which is still going on. Get all the content, all the tools, all full access to everything. And then today, we just announced a specialist package. So for an additional, if you just want to pay for it by itself, it's $59.99 a month. But if you want to pay for both of them together, it's a grand total of $79.99. So you get to save a little bit money. And the specialist package is all the other sports. So you get MMA, you get soccer, you get KBO. That's still going on, right? You get League of Legends, you get esports, you get what other sports are in the lobby? Australian rules football. I think that's in the lobby. You get all of that. I think it's like 16 different sports, and there'll be projections for all of them. There'll be content for all of them. So if you want that specialist package, if you play kind of the niche sports, and I can tell you from experience, I've been using the Brett Apley's MMA stuff and playing MMA. I think his write-ups are long and very detailed, and the projections are good. And we have PSU fans and Fear My Turtle, Alex and Sean, heading up the specialist package, and they're top-ranked players in college football, college basketball, soccer. They're always in the soccer lobby. I've been playing against them since I've started, so for 5 years. So I think they're at the top of the pack in the industry when it comes to all those specialist type of niche sports. So that was announced today, and you can just get it all. You get all the tools that I show off here, and it's what I use. I was a RotoGrinder subscriber when I started, so it's not like I just joined the team and all of a sudden, and buy all this stuff. It's like, no, I paid for it myself before joining the team for several years. So this is exactly the stuff that I use. So if you have any questions about it, feel free to join the chat in YouTube. Hit the thumbs up button. It's a live show. It's an interactive show. So if you have questions about just general DFS strategy, just feel free to post it in the YouTube. I answer everything. So I prioritize the YouTube people because you guys are the most important. Like Herbert Good. Yeah, you're here. Rosie Davis, Heat Nation 7. Right? You guys are here. We got viewers here. Right? So, but this is what I do. I go into Results DB for the big GPP, for the big main on DK. And I go and I just I see, kind of the general ownership. I mean, I don't have as much of the context on yesterday's slate since I didn't play. So like I didn't know like why these guys would be more, owned or whatever, because I wasn't really looking at it. But it's the type of thing where I'd look, I go, okay, general ownership. But then I'd go and I pick out some top DFS players. Typically they play 150 lineups, and I want to see what their exposures look like. So like I'm gonna click on like Brachiosaurus Flex. I'll go Alhambra. I respect him. We got I respect a lot of them. So Dark Mana Look, Anil Pro 88, Ricky D, Giant Squid, FJ Bourne. We got our own Squirrel Patrol here. And I kind of do full screen over here. So I just want to kind of see. So like by pitcher, for instance, I uncheck all of these. I'm checking this out because I want to see where the leverage is. I want to see like Giant Squid right here. Just flat out faded Trevor Bauer. Just nope, not going to play the chalk pitcher whatsoever. Played Kluber, didn't do very right. He came out after the first inning. So whoever had Kluber kind of got screwed. Right? Didn't play Velasquez at all. He went really contrarian. Kluber Freeland type builds, right? And Freeland did well for his price, right? I think 19.3, right? He had some Corbin, 27.05. Maeda, yeah, he went different at pitcher. Of course, obviously you needed Trevor Bauer, but it wasn't that bad. It wasn't that bad of a play, right? We're probably going to see on the hitters that Giant Squid probably played some chalkier stacks if he was getting his leverage at pitcher. But we could look through and just see like where the leverage was gotten. Like a lot of look at across the board, just in the selection of players that I chose, a lot of them over the field in Maeda. A lot of them over the field, a little bit over the field. Some of them over the field on Kluber and Carrasco. And then you could see on Bauer, because he was chalky, like no one really just went overboard. No one just said, I'm going to take 100% of Bauer. No, they kind of with the field or fading a little, right? So I'm just looking at this type of stuff. Right? Corbin did well, but not, you could go through a lot more players and see that it's not just, I'm not just, 7 or 8 players. I go through this every morning, typically, anywhere from 15 minutes to 30 minutes, just to go through, just to try to learn. So now I'm going to take off pitchers and I'm going to put back all the hitters because we're kind of looking for stacks. I know this is not necessarily organized by stacks, but you can kind of tell ownership wise based on you look for the colors. The reds and the blues primarily, and the dark greens, to see where people got leverage. Because you go through here, so you can see a lot of blue here. See Jesse Winker, that Castellanos, that's Cincinnati, right? Cincinnati was fairly chalky yesterday as a stack, right now, or maybe not 3%. Well, maybe not the bottom of their order. See, because Votto was 11%, right? Kind of weird, right? These type of stacks. Bryant. He had a lot of, Giant Squid had a very condensed player pool here. But like Ricky D on Cincinnati, right? Josh Van Meter. Because I'm looking at like Boston. Like, what did these guys do with Boston? Right? JD Martinez, like I'm going to sort by field. So we get the most owned hitters. And we could see a lot of the sharper players under on JD Martinez. Some a little on Yelich. Peraza, who was cheap, 22%. Mostly under. I guess Boston, they were mostly under. Kepler was fairly chalky, mostly under. Bregman, mostly under. Right? Bogart to Boston. Yeah, it seemed like most of these top players were under on Boston. And then we start looking down for a little bit lower owned players. Looking for the Blues. So Logan Morrison. We got obviously Giant Squid with his red stuff. But this is what I do. I look through. Baseball's a little bit different than basketball. Basketball, single players count more. In baseball, you're kind of playing stacks. I think at some point in Results DB, they're going to add an ability to do this by stack. Where you could see Boston, 32%, instead of just like the players, because you have to kind of go through. Because a lot of top players play very diverse sets of lineups. I mean, because take a look, Bryrannosaurus Rex. We see like how many players that they played. If I sort by like player, like look at this player pool. I mean, like he has guys at 1% point, one line up here, right? Right down here, Sam Hilliard in one lineup. Look, all these cheap guys because they're probably in stats. They're not necessarily one-offs. So we see a lot, very diverse, especially on an 11-game slate. But you can see Giant Squid was one of the only ones out of this that just like, I'm playing condensed, right? Getting leverage, fading Bauer, going very heavy on the Cubs, going heavy on the Cubs. That's a lot of Santander. Phillies, he had Hoskins, Bruce, so I'm assuming that's Phillies stacks. Very contrarian. So Giant Squid, pretty contrarian. We got a troll in it. We got a troll in the chat saying that the whole season is canceled. It's not canceled yet. It's not canceled yet. We're still playing. I hope it's not canceled. I'm down in MLB. It's only been 3 slates. I got to make my money back, right? Because that's how I play. I play GPPs, high-risk strategies. But that's kind of what you have to do when it's 100,000 the first. And by the time you get to 10th place, it's a set of steak knives. So you better be playing those GPPs that way. So this is kind of what I do. This is what you can do in Results DB. So I would suggest that, if you're looking to take this seriously, you should be studying the top players, not the winning lineup, because we can look at the winning lineup, right? The winning lineup was Megan Joy, right? Bauer, Maeda, 234.7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Got a Minnesota 5-man, Cleveland 2-man, Miami 1 guy. Is Jesus Aguilar? Is he positive? Is he one of the players tested positive? I hope it doesn't infect anyone else's lineups. But I take a look, like, what are you going to learn by this? It's like, oh, yeah, I know. A Minnesota stack would have won. But, like, did good players play them? I mean, Megan Joy, 150, so we could take a look here. Let me toggle back here. We could look for they played 150 lineups. Click over there, and I'm going to get them. So was it that they were all over Minnesota, or just it happened to be here? Megan Joy, see right here. Okay, so let's sort by ownership, up and down. Okay, 26 point. Let me get rid of some of these guys so I could scroll this all over. Where am I going? Toggle full screen. Okay, I get back in a habit for this. Right. Let's keep Squirrel Patrol up there. Jay Bourne. Let's go back to full screen. Okay, we got Megan Joy over here. So we got Salvador Perez, Eddie. Oh, there we go. Here's all the Minnesota. Eddie Rosario, 7%, 25%. Polanco, 6% owned, 22% exposure. Aguilar, 2%, 21%. Yeah. Megan Joy kind of just hit it square on the head. I mean, had plenty of Kepler because that's in Minnesota stacks. Nelson Cruz, 12%, 15%. Okay. So it looks like Minnesota stacks were towards the top of Megan Joy's exposure percentages. But in comparison to other top players, I mean, a little, but obviously just went heavy on the stack that did the best. Heat Nation 7 has a question. Blender on a given slate, like the 11-gamer yesterday. How many vomit stacks do you normally play? Do you pick a few depending on ownership, or you have some? I don't necessarily. I know I'm known for vomit stacks, but it doesn't mean like I'm playing them every day or I'm playing them in a million lineups. It's all in the context of the slate. I mean, what I'm looking for vomit stacks, the general kind of rule is that 5 players. A 5-man. This is DraftKings. 5-man, total combined price 20K or below. Okay? And in the top of the order. So if I could find anyone in the top 7, like a lot of times you get the 8th and 9th hitters that, you may have a $3,200 guy there. And that's the only way that you can make a 20K stack. But I'm looking primarily on stacks that I could go 1, 2, 3, 5, 6. I could do something towards the top of the lineup and get it under 20K. And then that allows me to pay up for a stud pitcher and some good one-offs. But there are some slates where, is there a stud pitcher worth paying for? If there's no stud pitcher worth paying for that I think is going to be over-owned or not worth it, then obviously I don't need to play cheap stacks. If I'm going to play cheap pitchers or mid-range pitchers, then the propensity of playing those 20K or below stacks is less so. So I probably play less of them. On slates where you have a lot of aces, where, you have 2 10K level pitchers that I'd love to get both of them in, well, you need cheap stacks for that. So really the context of the slate matters, and where the batters are and what positions they fill. It doesn't help me all that much if a vomit stack has, 3 cheap outfielders and a first baseman. Like, I need to fill those catchers and shortstops with kind of cheaper guys because the position is kind of scarce and kind of crappy on a day-to-day basis. So if I'm going to play a cheap player, let me play it in the stack. So that's really what I'm looking at. And then I'm also looking at, which is part of premium, is Slate IQ, which is something that Chris Gimino has been doing for the past 2 years, 3 years, right? It's kind of like a top stack tool, but we don't call it top stack tool because we're not allowed to, apparently. It's called Slate IQ. It originally was called Slate IQ. Chris Gimino uses Results DB because we have the entire DK database of contests at RotoGrinders. So using the data in Results DB, Gimino will find the 25 most comparable slates based on pricing, based on field size, based on all the aspects of today's slate, or that slate in general. And then the most similar slates, and then run simulations to see how often certain things happen for the winning lineup. So we take a look and we see slate texture here, right? What the GPP line most likely is going to be on similar. It's going to be higher than average, right? Right. We take a look here. Similar. This is average of any slate. Chalk hit rate, more likely than not. Ownership, a little bit higher, right? A lot of times you'll see that be very similar from slate to slate. But the main sections that I'm looking at, like stack type leverage, you could look at, but most likely you'll see that the leverage right here, people still don't stack 5-man enough. So this is pretty much going to be true like every slate. But the main one I'm looking at is this, the teams. So if I could sort by winner, so based on those simulations of the 25 most similar slates, this is for yesterday's slate. This is how often, percentage-wise, the 4 or 5-man stack for these teams appeared in the winning lineup. Okay, so Milwaukee, 7.8%. We have Minnesota, 4.4%, right? Gives you all of this. Based on the simulations, the chances that that's going to be the top stack. Who knows who's in that stack, right? It doesn't say that. What 5 guys? It doesn't say that. And then also based on the ownership projections that Gimino has, how much the field will own them. So like yesterday, Yankees, 6% winner, owned by only 3.1% of the field based on projections. The difference, 2.8%, gives you 89.6% leverage. So kind of I'm looking at this going, okay, I'm looking for stacks that have higher win percentage in the simulations and have more leverage, right? So the Cubs, over-owned based on Slate IQ. Milwaukee, over-owned. Under-owned. Yankees, under-owned. Phillies. Minnesota, about evenly owned. Cincinnati, under-owned. St. Louis, under-owned. You take a look down here, like Seattle, they have barely any win chances. So even here, look, Pittsburgh, 74.3% leverage. Oh, great, because it's a difference of 1.2% and 0.7%. It's still very low in comparison. It has a little bit of leverage, but whatever. But I took a look at something like Miami, 2.8%, but only owned at 1.5. I'm looking at these teams right here because it's high enough, because it's still 3% and 2% is still better than 0.nothing%, right? And looking for my leverage, right? And I'm going to compare this to projections also, because I use bat projections, Cardi's projections. If the bat has them high and they have leverage up here and they have good win percentage, then I'm looking to play them. And if they're a vomit stack, then so be it, right? So yesterday, I probably would have played the Marlins had I played, right? Looking at this, right? As a vomit stack. And then I would have been able to play Bauer and Carrasco together. I mean, that makes complete sense to me. The more expensive stacks like Houston, you get leverage, but you're going to have to play cheap pitchers. right? So maybe I do play some Houston stacks, but I'm going to need to find cheap pitchers in order to do that. Same for I think the Cubs yesterday were fairly expensive. So it really depends on the construction. I think today's slate, I think the 10.3K for Fultonevich, like, is he really an ace? Do I really need to spend 10.3K on him? So like on today's slate, maybe vomit stacks aren't as prevalent in my lineup set that I'm playing. If I'm playing 100 lineups or whatever, because maybe I'm not paying up at pitcher much. So I'm not gonna necessarily need a 20K or less stack. So I hope that gives you a little bit of insight. Michael Singh asks, new to MLB on the 3-game slate is a 3-3 stack value. Yes, that's completely valid. The concept is the larger the slate, the more correlate, and obviously the contest that you're playing. If you're playing big field GPPs, you need the most amount of leverage, the most amount of correlation. You need to try to score practically the nuts. Small field contest, you're playing a 300-man single entry GPP. You don't need as much leverage. But in general, when it comes to stacking in MLB, the bigger the slate, the more you should stack. The smaller the slate, the less. Be less inclined. Be more inclined. Doesn't mean you don't, or doesn't mean you do for sure. But as you see right here, the field doesn't stack 5-man enough in like an 11-game slate. The whole concept is that between 22 teams, there's more of a chance that one of the 22 puts up a whole ton of runs. And having 5 of those players wins you the GPP. When there's only 3 games on the slate, that's only 6 teams. So, I mean, we could have one game that's 4-1, and the next game is 3-2, and the other game is 5-0. And it's like, well, getting 5 runs out of a stack is not less. I mean, you may not need 5 players. They may not have all produced to only score 5 runs. So you could play a 3-3. You could play 3-2-1-1. You could pick people out a little bit more because the effect of correlation is not as dramatic. On an 11-game slate, like doing that, it's much better to just pick teams. Just go, okay, I'm going to spend 10% of my lineup stacking the Twins, and then stack them in a whole bunch of different ways. And just hope Twins are the team that go off on 11, because that's what other people are going to do. You're going to end up stuck with those 3-3-2 type stacks and not have enough. You'll have Nelson Cruz, but you won't have like the other guys, and you'll get wrong on some other one-off and end up, coming in 63rd when if you stacked 5-man, you would have came in first. Does Slate IQ get posted before the slate each night? Yes. Typically, Slate IQ comes out a little bit after the ownership projections come out, typically in the middle of the afternoon. Well, depending on when the slate starts. But on most days when there's, a 6:40 like today, we come out around 2:30, 3 o'clock when ownership projections come out. Sometimes ownership comes out at 1 o'clock and then Slate IQ at like 2:30, and then that gets updated. So as typically ownership projections and Slate IQ won't be run until we get enough starting lineups out. It's kind of hard to run ownership when we're not necessarily sure what the batting orders are going to be and who's going to play. So once, like that's why like around 2:30, 3 o'clock when we get a lot of the starting lineups for the teams. Maybe not the West Coast games so much, but enough so that Jamino can then get his hamsters on his wheel. Hamsters are on the wheel. They go run around, come up with the ownership, come up with Slate IQ, and then at like 6 o'clock, they get updated. Like at 5:30, they get updated again. Maybe 6:30, they get updated again. And this is run again. So I typically keep this page lined up. I also, what you can do on your phone, okay? Here's something, if you have the RG app, okay, on your phone, if you have the RG app on your phone, you could set content alerts. So you should be, if you have the RG app, you could get the alerts, even if you're not even a premium member. So if you download the RotoGrinders app onto your phone, Android, iOS, whatever, you can get the news updates. Like the Marlins game was canceled. It comes to me. I don't have to look for that, right? You get injury reports, everything like that for all the sports. But when content comes out, you could also get a notification. So like when the grind down for baseball comes out, you'll get a notification. When, and there's a whole list of, if you want to know when certain things happen on the site, when the weather report comes out by Roth in the morning, And then when it gets updated later, you can turn that on. So what I do for Slate IQ, instead of me having to check every 20 minutes in the middle of the afternoon, oh, is it up yet? Is it up yet? Is it up yet? I just put that content to learn on. So I'll get a notification that says Slate IQ has been posted. Slate IQ is live. And okay, now I can look. Ownership projections are up. I get a notification for that. So that's one useful thing. If you're a premium member, because those are premium thing, I'm showing you something that's premium. Okay, you get a little taste, right? This is from yesterday, so it's not like you could do anything about it. Unless you have a time machine, you really can't do anything. But that's what I do. So I just don't even have to bother the checking. I'll get the notification when it's up, and then I can go look. If you're MMEing, this is from Donnie Watson. If you're MMEing and you only want chalk pitcher combos, Bauer, Carrasco with vomit stacks, how can you do that? Would you have to separate builds, ensuring that combo wasn't only showing up in top stacks? I'm not. If I only want chalk pitcher combos, then I'm just gonna have Bauer, Carrasco in 100% of my lineups. I'm just gonna exclude all the other pitchers, right? Oh, if you only want the chalk pitchers with vomit, well, it almost has to be that way, right? If you're playing two expensive pitchers, the only way to do that with 5-man stacks is that it's going to jam in. It's naturally going to happen. But if you wanted to make sure that it happened more likely than not, what you'd do is you'd set a conditional player group. So, for instance, like say on today's slate, I'll show you. This is what the show is, okay? If you come here via YouTube and you have questions to ask, I will answer them. So if someone's listening to this, I know this gets posted later, and people will be like, oh, what does this have to do with me? You're just explaining something to someone in chat for 5 minutes. Well, they get the priority. They're here live watching. That's what this is, a teaching show. This is not a who to play pick show, right? We'll talk about some projections for today's slate, but for the most part, show up live and ask your questions and they will get answered, right? Okay, so that group, for instance, in Lineup HQ. So for instance, I'm just using today's slate for an example. Let's say for whatever reason you want to play James and Glasnow and vomit stacks, right? What will be a vomit stack today? What? I'm gonna guess like Tampa Bay, right? Well, you wouldn't play them against Glasnow. So who's a vomit stack today? Like who's a really cheap stack? Pittsburgh, maybe? Okay, let's just say it's Pittsburgh. Right? Right, let's see. Cheap. Yeah, they're all under, other than Josh Bell. Josh Bell is 5,100. But whatever. Okay, so let's say that this is a Pittsburgh vomit stack. And you wanted to make sure that you were playing Pittsburgh vomit stacks in Carrasco. Like you wanted to make sure Carrasco and Bauer were in all your Pittsburgh vomit stacks, right? Or vice versa. So you got a player group, and you could do something like this. So let's say I'm going to use the conditional player, Josh Bell, right? He's the one guy in the Pittsburgh stack, right? You could do 2 ways. Let's take Glasnow, and who's Faulty? Because he's expensive, right? Okay, so let's do that. So I could do it this way. So any lineup that Josh Bell appears in, use exactly these 2 players, minimum 2, maximum 2. So anytime that lineup accused creates this, Josh Bell, which is probably going to only be, because he's so lowly projected based on his $5,100 price, only going to be Pittsburgh stacks, right? It'll probably naturally happen. So like you may not have to set up this group, but you could also do the reverse. So let's say instead of doing that, you set your conditional player as Fultonevich, right? And then now we start adding pirates to this. So Brian Reynolds, Newman, right? Who else is on the team? We got is Frazier. Frazier probably doesn't start. Does he start against? Who's starting for the? Who's projected? Right. One, Brian Reynolds, Moran, Frazier, Osuna, Tucker, Murphy. Go back here. We got the catcher, John Murphy, and we got Osuna and Frazier and Heredia. You start adding all the Pittsburgh Pirates here. And then Fultonevich, if you're just using 5-man stacks, right, you could just do something like this, right? Use exactly 5 players. So if Fulte is in, it's automatically going to be Pittsburgh, right? But of course, this limits you that every Fulte lineup is going to be a Pittsburgh stack. But you could set it to something like this and go use 2 to 5 players in every faulty lineup, which means you could get the one-offs. You get the 5-2-1s, something like this. You most likely, if you're playing 2 expensive pitchers, don't have to make these groups. Just price-wise, salary-wise, they naturally will happen. But if you wanted to make sure, you could use the logic of if this guy's in, make sure to play this, right? That's what you would use groups for, to force certain things in, if needed. So I hope that helps. What categories are the most important to look at in Plate IQ? I have no idea. I just look at projections. So I wouldn't even be able to tell you. You could look at Slate IQ. I think look at Plate IQ is great, but it's all in the projections, so I don't see a need to do it. I rely on projections. So like all the stuff that would be in Plate IQ is what I'm looking at. So like Josh James, he's projected well in the bat, right? There has to be a reason for it, right? It probably shows in Plate IQ, right? Same for the hitters. We go to hitters. I mean, Praz is so cheap, right? McBroom. So I mean, look at how cheap these guys are. But if I go by team, like I'm looking down by team, look at KCR. Look at Royal. Look how many Royals show up good point per dollar. I mean, that's a vomit stack galore. I mean, take a look at this. You may not even need that. So I'm just looking through these types of things, right? I'm going through DraftKings. I'm looking at projections. All these numbers are that you're seeing in the middle, fantasy points, the floor, ceiling, this type of stuff, is all of those statistics that you'd be looking at and then put together as a number, giving you a median of a range of outcomes. So while you can look at Plate IQ, to me, it's like looking at the same thing twice. Like it's already been accounted for. So if I were to look at Plate IQ and see, he also has a big strikeout rate. Like it would be in his pitcher projection. That's the reason why it'd be higher, right? I try at least personally, me. This is my process, remember. Other people have different processes and they could be successful, right? A lot of top players have different processes. I try to condense my process as much as possible to the most relevant information for me. I have a very game theory driven approach, right? I'm not watching tape. I'm not scouting players. I'm not diving into the deep in the analytics. Nope. Derek Hardy is a great projection model. So I'm just going to use it, right? It's going to show me the stats, right? It's going to show me that. I could look at prices. I could see where the field is going once ownership comes up, right? I could see, okay, this guy's going to be under-owned based on his projection. This team's going to be under-owned based on his projection. I'll go to Slate IQ, this team apparently has a higher win percentage than what will be owned, and I just play them. That's kind of my process. I try to condense it down as much as possible, but also I'm playing large field GPPs where I'm looking to leverage ownership as much as possible. To drill down and see who's going to be the best median play for cash games, for double ups, for small field GPPs even. That's not the contest that I focus on. So I'm more likely to take much more risks. So a guy may look horrible in Plate IQ, but maybe cheap and part of a stack. And I'm just, okay, maybe today's the day. Maybe it happens today. He's part of the stack. The guys get on base and he hits a 3-run double and pays off with double digits for 3,200. But he's part of the stack. And as long as the stack does well, he should do well. Tony Tischauer asks, when you set up one-off group, do you include players that are also in your stack? Yes, if I want to play them as a one-off, right? Like if I'm going to create a group, like that concept is that, for instance, let's say we set up stacks for today's slate, right? Like I exclude it because typically what I do is I'll exclude all. We might as well just get into this, right? I just exclude everyone, okay? Well, I won't exclude pitchers for now, but I exclude everyone. So maybe I'm going through. I'm just going to do this. I'm going to do this very quickly. This is not how quick that I would do it, okay? I'm just telling you. It's not as quick. I would sort by point per dollar projection-wise, right? And start looking. So where's some cheap stacks? Good point per dollar medians, right? Maybe not Atlanta. Go to Tampa Bay. I get 2.2. I'm looking for a lot like twos, right? Okay, this is pretty good, right? Chicago. So I go by order, right? I want to see, what the order looks like. It's like, okay, this whole team or whatever. Okay, let's say Okay, I'm going to play all the Cubs. Okay, there. Cubs are in, right? I take a low. Cincinnati. Okay. That seems pretty good, right? Look at all this, right? I'm going to go get in. Okay. Eat that up. Milwaukee has a high total. Oh, look at all these. Okay, let's get these guys in. Milwaukee, Pittsburgh. A little vomit stack here, but I may not need it today because the pitching is cheap. Seattle, I got some, but maybe I don't play them. Houston's expensive, but I mean they got some cheap guys, and it's Brantley, Reddick against Graveman. Okay, these. So maybe I look at this and maybe I don't stack Houston. Maybe I want Brantley as a one-off, right? So I go Brantley one-off, Reddick one-off. They're in, right? So I'm not having a Houston stack. Then I go to the White Sox. No, that doesn't look good. Cleveland, not as much. KCR, vomit stack I may not need. Detroit, another vomit stack I may not need because of the pitching. The Mets, the Mets come up pretty good, right? Okay, against Osich or whatever. Okay, I'm going to just go yum, eat them all up. Right, go to Boston, right? Boston is, wow, off the charts. Okay, I'll go Boston. They'll probably be popular, but I'll eat them all up. Okay, that's what we got. Okay, so now I got all of that in there. Okay, now if I didn't set like one-off type, if I didn't set rules or something like that, look at Jose Peraza. He comes up as 3.2 point per dollar at second base and shortstop. If I don't set anything, what's going to end up happening is I'm going to get a lot of Peraza as a one-off in other stacks, right? So if I'm going to set my stacks to, let's say, 5x, right? 5x. So a 5-man stack and 3 one-offs. That's what I'm going to build. So let's say at that point, let me set min 0 so I could build some lineups. Oh, there's not. Oh, I excluded all the pitchers. Okay, maybe I need to take those. Okay, let me get all the pitchers back. Okay, what pitchers do I want to play? Let's see. I'm just going to play the top. I'm probably not going to play Houston. I'll go, okay, James, Glasnow, Montgomery, Cease, Savali. Maybe I do play Faulty. He's expensive, but I may not be able to fit him in. Like something like that. I'm just don't take this as this is actually what I'm going to do. I'm just doing this very quickly as an example. Okay, so I got pitchers in. So now, for instance, if I built 150 lineups based on just nothing, I didn't do anything to here. What I'm going to expect to see when I build 150 is Jose, like these guys, Peraza, Irvin, Verdugo, these guys, maybe not Benintendi, but these really cheap. I'm expecting to see like as one-offs in a ton of other stacks. So they won't just appear in Boston stacks, right? Josh James, right? Like, yeah, look at Peraza, 91%, right? If I just did it, like I'm just getting James Glasnow. I'm getting a ton of Peraza, a ton of Pete Alonso in the first base spot. I mean, I'm just getting tons of this, right? Because I didn't set, I didn't even set stack rules, right? Of how much of a stack that I want. But let's say I don't want to get Peraza, right? What I can do is like, I don't want him to be a one-off in a ton of stacks. So I set maybe at 15%. They'll stop that from happening. 15, max 15, right? Max 15, right? All on these guys. Arcia. I don't want to, $2,600 shortstop as a one-off in a ton of stacks as the ninth hitter at Pittsburgh. I could do something like this and then see what the exposures come out to be. Or what you can do is like, I'll sort by point per dollar, but I'm looking for like good hitters, right? Not cheapo guys, right? So I'm going to take a look. I could add them to a group right from here. So let's say I don't mind Benintendi as a one-off. New group. Group 1, right? I don't mind Bogarts as a one-off shortstop. Okay, so I'm going to add him. I don't mind Cespedes as a one-off. I don't mind Brantley as a one-off. JD Martinez, maybe I play Boston as more one-offs. Moreland as a one-off. I'm going to scroll down or something like this, right? So I add maybe Devers as a one-off. Alonso as a one-off. Smoke as a one-off. I'm just going through. I'm just Keston here as a one-off. Maybe I go through a little bit more. Maybe Bryant's third base eligible, right? Maybe Conforto as a one-off. I'll add him. Chris Bryant as a one-off. So I add all those to a group, and then I go back to player groups, and I see here's all my one-offs, right? Because I have all these guys. I may have a list that's like twice as long as this. And then I set a map, use exactly 1 to 3. Right? Which is basically, if I'm using 5-man stacks, 5, 1, 1, 1, these would be all my one-offs. Right? Use at least 1 and up to 3. It doesn't mean the other 2 spots can't be those guys. I mean, I could set it as make at least 2 of these guys. Make it all of them. Right? But sometimes that doesn't fit in salary-wise. So maybe I set it as 1 to 3 or 2 to 3. And I have a whole list of 20 guys that I don't mind. I want as one-offs. And I want at least 2 of those in all of my lineups as one-offs. And then the other person could be, like, if it ends up being Orlando Arcia, then so be it. Right? If that's the way that it fits in. Right? So you're just using the logic of player groups in Lineup HQ to do whatever it is that you're looking to do strategically. It's not going to tell you what to do. You have to tell it what to do. Don't not use rules and everything and just let, the projections will just tell me who to stack. It's like, then you're just going to get a lot of whoever's projected high who will also be owned high. So that doesn't solve your problem in large field GPPs where you're trying to get leverage to win first out of 50,000, 80,000 entries. Donnie Watson asked, it says the pricing has been so soft that you're getting the chalk with the higher price. Yeah, because the pricing has been a little bit, the pricing has been soft. That's why I said before about vomit stacks that, like on some slates, you may not have to play them, right? You get some of the lower priced players that they haven't priced up. And is there, like, when you could get guys that should be like $1,000 more expensive, should you be playing like 5 Tigers in your lineup? Less likely so. It doesn't mean you don't, but it'd be less likely. Like yesterday, you get all the Milwaukee, Chicago with Bauer Carrasco, and you didn't want that. Right. It depends on what you want to do strategically. What contests are you in, and what lineups should you be building for those types of contests? You have to figure that out first before you start generating lineups. Right? Just like I did before. I went through and it's like, okay, what stacks do I want to play? Of course, we don't have any ownership out. I don't have Slate IQ, so I wouldn't be doing it this early. I'd look, I'd be, that's interesting, right? Oh, interesting. But not make any choices until like maybe 4 in the afternoon. So I'm just looking throughout the day because the lineups will change. This guy is in the order. This guy, is out. Something like that. Matthew Start asks, how many stacks do you use on the average slate, and do you cap the exposure of a certain stack? It depends on the contest I'm in and how many lineups I'm running. Because I'm not a 150 max player. You can go to Results DB and see that. Like, I don't play 150 lineups. I may play 50. I may play 30. I may play 80. If there's overlay, I play 150. Right? Like on Friday, I was playing 150 on Fanduel, 150 on Draft because the contests were overlaid. It's not only is it no rake, but you're getting EV back. So I'm going to play a lot. So if I see that, I play more. It depends on how many stacks I believe are viable, right? Sometimes I go through and I go, I'd really want to hammer home on these 2 stacks. And I play them in like 40% of my lineups and then mix in a couple of others. And that's about it. There are some slates where, I think there's like 8 that I would want to play. And I have to decide, do I play 8 and disperse, have very little of all of them? Or do I focus on a couple of them? And it depends on price and the pitchers that I'm using. So it's really a slate to slate type of thing. So there's no cap, right? It's very rare, though, that I go like 100% on a stack, right? But you can. It's just high risk. All that question is like, how much risk do you want to take on a given slate? Because if you're going to play very condensed player pool, playing a lot of certain stacks, you can have lineups that are very correlative to one another, right? You can have lineups if you set in build rules. If you have a number of unique players at 1, you may have lineups that it's the same 5-3 with a slightly different pitcher. Like, essentially, it's practically the same lineup. So if that lineup does well, you're going to come in like 3rd and 5th. You're going to be competing against yourself, right? So you may want, if you're going to play a very condensed player pool, maybe you want to set unique players to be 2 or 3. If you're playing a diverse player pool, I mean. So you get more diverse lineups. But if you're playing very condensed and you just like I'm going all in on the Red Sox and the Twins, playing two of these three pitchers, and that's it. Just understand, if those teams don't do well and those pitchers don't do well, none of your entries cash. You're going to go from putting in $500 and getting back $9, right? You're not going to get any equity in any type of cashing spot. Or you're going to go put in 500 and get back 50. That you're going to come in first, 8th, 10th. You're going to come very close to one another. So it's really a risk tolerance thing. But typically I don't play extremely diverse, but I also don't play that condensed. If you go into results DB, you could see, just like we saw with the giant squid, right? We saw that he played a very condensed player pool, but a lot of like other players, for Tyrannosaurus Rex, it's kind of like you don't see. Like, take a look at the hitters here for Tyrannosaurus Rex. Like, no one was like, look, 20. This was his exposure percentages. So he had no one over 22%. So he just had a lot. Right? Austin Hay. I mean, he had some Oriole stacks. We had some. He played a much more diverse lineup set. Right? He focused on some teams, but it's not like he played every stack. No. But he probably played a whole bunch of teams. Or you could be like Giant Squid and just play, I'm going to play 3 teams, and those are the teams I'm going all in on. It's perfectly fine. If you're right, you do great. If you're wrong, you do horrible. It's just a matter of how much variance you're going to have. What point per dollar number do you look at to determine your vomit stacks? I mean, typically on Draftkings, I'm looking for like over 2. I mean, I don't mind playing anyone. But typically those are the more expensive players. I'm looking, like I took a look here. Like Chicago is not a vomit stack necessarily, but they have some cheap players in it, right? So like, depends on the order. See, I look at the order and go 1 to 9, and I'm looking at these numbers median wise 1 to 9. But like Nico Horner is going to fit a shortstop spot, and that Baez could fill. So I would want to play Horner at second base, right? So I get a second base because I'm looking at position also. The less outfielders, the better. So I could fill scarce positions like catcher, right? So this may not be the best stack point per dollar, but I'm going to get a cat. Look at all the positions I get: third base, first base, shortstop, catcher, second base. I could have no outfielders in this stack and get good one-off outfielders. So I'm looking at this stack going, okay, positional. I may not want that much Almora, right? I may not want that much Hap at 4,200 batting 8th. I may not want that much Carantini, right? He may be in some, right? Because he fills either where Rizzo would be or where Contreras would be. But I'd still probably throw him in. It's just that he may not appear as much. So I'm looking at this. I'm like, okay, this stack feels appealing. But let's say you go to Pittsburgh, for instance. I think they're a good one. Where are they shown? Did I even include them? No, I didn't even include them. Let's go to Pittsburgh. Like Pittsburgh has a couple of these, but look at the order. Like I get like, okay, Morant, look at how many first basemen there are. Like if I switch Colin to third base, so he's only there. So he's pretty fine. Frazier's pretty good, right? I mean, this is a viable vomit stack. But I just don't like the fact that like Josh Bell is expensive, so it'll make the stack expensive a little bit more, right? But like Heredia down here fills an outfield spot. The catchers, it's a little bit disjointed, right? Because you can't play Osuna and Bell in the same lineup, right? Taking up an outfield spot with Brian Reynolds, you could fill a catcher with the 8-hole, which they're playing at home, so he has a little bit less of a plate appearance expectation. So while this is a vomit stack, like if I look at Slate IQ and Pittsburgh comes up like, well, maybe I do consider them. But on an overall perspective, it's like, yeah, I guess I could fit some players in, but this whole like Bell and Osuna and Moran kind of playing similar positions, like makes it a little bit harder to stack. Yet if you look at someone, let's say like let's look at Cincinnati. So we got outfielders here. Like look all the bottom of the order is the scarce positions, right? So I'd probably prioritize Casale, right? Because you'd want to get the good hitters. So you want Irvin, Votto, Suarez, Castellanos, Casale. Like that 1 to 5 would be the best right here. But then like you still want to use these guys, right? Because you want to fill scarce positions. So a lot of my Cincinnati stacks may not be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It may be 4 of these guys and then Farmer and then Galvis or Cologne or something. So I could fill. So I'm not stuck with Orlando Arcia as a one-off. in a Cincinnati stack, right? I'd want in these stacks to have Bogarts or, some good hitting Correa, good hitting shortstop as a one-off. So that's what I would be looking at. So it's not just point per dollar. It's also like, how does the stack come together? What's the order? What positions they're in? And what are their prices, right? Because if I'm going to take Votto now, if I'm going to take these three guys, right? 4,800. So 4, 4, 12, 13, 1, 13, 9 on these three, right? Add Casali. And we get 16, 8, right? 16, 8 plus 3. We get 19, 8. Okay, so this is technically is considered a vomit stack based on Irvin and Casali being cheap because it's slightly under 20K. So I would definitely like it. Definitely, for sure. But I also just, those positions, like how do I fill the middle infield positions? So I wouldn't exclude these guys. I wouldn't just play 1 to 5 and go, that's my stack. And then, Kyle Farmer hits a home run and you're throwing your hat because you didn't play him in stacks, right? I'd still include these guys. But let's say I'm playing Cincinnati. So in this case, I explained it. I'm still getting an under 20K stack out of 1 to 5. That's going to be the primary one that I use. But Farmer, Galvis, Cologne, maybe I don't want to have a bottom of the order stack, right? I don't want to have, maybe I don't want 7, 8, 9, 1, 2. Maybe I don't want 2, 3, 5, 7, 8, right? So basically these three guys on the bottom, I don't want together. I want 4 of the top guys and then 1 of these guys. So I could do that in player groups, right? So I put in Farmer, Galvis, Cologne, and I set the max as 1. So whenever a 5-man Cincinnati stack gets made, it can only have 1. Maybe I put Akiyama there also. I could include him as well. Akiyama, right? So this group right here, min 0, max 1 of these in any lineup, which means that if I'm setting a 5-man Cincinnati stack or whatever, 10%, whatever about a percent I'm putting there, it's going to create a lineup out of 4 of these guys. I mean, it could be 1 to 5 and not include any of them because it's min 0. But if any of these 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 appear in a stack, it's going to be with 4 of the above guys and none of the others, right? If you choose to do that, you don't have to, right? I could just leave it alone. And if I get a 3, 4, 6, 8, 9 stack, then so be it. But I probably on this slate probably wouldn't prefer that. So I would set up that type of group. Can you lock in Noah Fant for your SB2 spot? We got D Johnson here getting ready for football. Are we going to have football this season? Who knows? Who knows if we're going to have the rest of baseball this season, right? Who knows if the baseball slate's going to happen today? Who knows? Well, no one knows, right? Does RotoWare have a vomit stack t-shirt yet? No. You should reply them. Reply to them on Twitter. I don't think RotoWare cares about me, right? No one cares about me. Vomit stacks, play whoever you want. That's what it should be, right? Play whoever you want, right? There's no t-shirt. There should be a t-shirt. Play whoever you want t-shirt. Go reply at RotoWare. See, maybe they'll make one. But vomit stacks, typically, 5-man under. So technically, this counts because of Casali's and Irvin's price. That would technically be a vomit stack. But if you take a look at pitcher today, like pitchers just. Where are they going? Okay, I have to click all. Okay. Like, do you want to pay 10-3 for Fultonevich? Do you want to pay 9-7 for Savali against the White Sox or Cease against the Indians? Right? It just seems like, I guess that they're good pitchers in comparison to the rest of the slate. But is there a need to? Right? Glasnow, how many pitches is he going to go at? We have to worry about that also. Right? So that's why it's like I'm not sure how much money you're going to spend. I don't know if you're going to be making builds where you're spending 20K a pitcher, right? Play some Mike Montgomery and then one of these guys, and then you could pretty much play whatever stack you want at that point. Don't be afraid to leave money on the table to be unique with the variance in baseball. On an 11-game slate, I don't think you have to worry about duplication, right? But you don't necessarily, like in build rules, I don't keep it as 50,000, right? I typically put it at 49, 5 to 5. Like if that's the way the stacks work out, that's the way the stacks work out. But On a small slate, yeah, leaving money on the table could, avoid duplication because there's just less players to choose from. But even on a 7-game slate like we have today, assuming it stays at 7, I don't know, we may lose even more games. I just try to use salary, but I mean, it's not the be all end all. If you're sitting there at 49.5, well, how do I spend the other 500? Well, if your lineup makes sense, right? If you're playing a 5-3 and 2 pitchers, I mean, I got to change a guy out because I'm leaving 500 on the table. It's baseball. People could go 0 for 5. I mean, look at yesterday. I mean, come on, look at yesterday with the who did well. Look, Yelich was 23% owned and got 0. JD Martinez got a 0, right? Peraza got a 0. More than zeros. I mean, like Kepler 0, right? So some guy that's 3,200 could outscore a player that's 5,000 easily. They're all going to get pretty much the same opportunities. So you do that. So you don't have to worry that much about it. If you're not reaching for a sick bag when you submit your lineups, you're not done yet. Yeah, that's a good point, Robert. If you're playing large field GPPs and you're like, I'm pretty sure of this, you're probably not playing contrarian enough. Or you're building a lineup that could min cash well, but probably can't win a 100,000 entry contest. So that's my suggestion. And I have a lot more on strategy. If you go to, I came up with an audio course, an audio book, theoryofdfs.com. So if you want to check that out, theoryofdfs.com, came out last week. Feel free to do that. Sign up for RotoGrinder Premium, RotoGrinders Premium, or the Specialist Package with all. We may just need the Specialist Package. I don't know. Is baseball going to happen? Are we going to have any more baseball today? Today, at least today. I need to get back to even today. I played, 2 slates, 3 slates, and I'm down. I need to get back to even before they cancel the MLB season. I'm on a like $800 downswing. So that's woohoo! Got to get it back. So I hope it's back, and I hope we're back. Today's schedule, we got Grinders Live coming up. I think at 5:30, 5 o'clock. I think it's at 5 o'clock. These slate times they change. It's a 6:40 p.m. slate. It's all over the place. So I think 6 o'clock, 5 o'clock for Grinders Live, 5:30. One of those things, and then it's crunch time. You'll see it on the YouTube, right? Crunch Time is premium. So if you're a premium member, you get that. And here we go. Devin's in the chat. There we go. 5 o'clock. Okay. But you have to hit the like button. If you like this pregame show, the more you hit the like button, the more likely we keep on doing this, right? Because we're going to get into the silly season, right? NBA starting at noon. There's going to be shows all the time coming up. So maybe sometimes the pregame show will be preempted, right? Because they need to do NBA Grinders Live or something like that. So this is the little show that could. So if you like this show, strategy-wise, just hit that thumbs up button and tweet about it, right? Or bug Dan Bach, at Dan Bach on Twitter, and say you like the pregame show. Keep the pregame show. Even if there's no baseball, even if there's no sports, you should always tune into the pregame show. 11 a.m. Eastern on weekdays. With me or Britt. I think it's mostly me or Britt, right? Me or Britt. But thanks for tuning in. Yeah, I know, Donnie. I missed the Miami stack yesterday. I know. I can't believe I missed the stack in the Marlins. I didn't play on the day before the Marlins. Never play again. Never play again. But we'll play again on the pregame show on RotoGrinders.com.